Thanks for coming back. What's about to happen could change the way you always think about money, power, and technology. Because for the first time in modern times, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has recognized a new framework for a global digital currency system. This framework could put Ripple, XRP, at the center of global funding in a very quiet way. Even though that sounds risky, keep in mind that history has always favored those who built the tracks before protests. Bookkeeping with two entries was created by the Medici family. This led to a huge increase in trade across Europe. The telegraph cut the time it took to send a message from weeks to seconds, which changed banks forever. Now, blockchain is doing for value what the internet did for information. The question is, which digital product will connect all the others? Because of what the IMF just found, the answer might be XRP. The world's economy is starting to fall apart. As of today, it still takes days for a transaction to settle on SWIFT, the global banking network that was built in the 1970s. It's like sending an email that doesn't get delivered until 3 business days later. That's not new ideas, it's called inertia. The world's economy is starting to fall apart. As of today, it still takes days for a transaction to settle on SWIFT, the global banking network that was built in the 1970s. It's the same as sending an email that doesn't get delivered for 3 workdays. That's not new ideas, it's called inertia. The IMF has just released a new idea called the C currency scheme. A neutral bridge asset lets all kinds of money from CBDCs to tokenized accounts trade easily in this digital market, as they put it. The name for it is C currency. It's the digital oil that powers the new economy. We call it the forgotten link. Now for the twist, this isn't just an idea. The IMF's study details a settlement asset that is already made to play this role. That model, the XRP system from Ripple. Let's go back to see why this is important. Since the 1944 signing of the Bretton Woods Agreement, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency. This is not because it is perfect, but because people believe it. Cities were built on trust. But now, in 2025, trust has moved from states to code, and the IMF is changing to keep up. Their goal is to have a global clearinghouse where deals don't depend on banks trading with each other, but on open code-verified ledgers. That's exactly what the XRP ledger was made to do in 2012. The people at Ripple didn't make a new currency years before CBDC was even a word. They put together the pipes that make the internet work. So let's look at what the IMF said and why it's shaking up the world's financial system. Trusted Bridges and Money Flows is the name of the IMF's fintech note. Senior economists, monetary policy directors, and the paper's writers talked about 3 possible frameworks for digital money to work with other digital currencies. The first is a private payment asset and market with XRP from Ripple as an example. The second is an open source plan that talks about stellar lumens. The third one is a centralized multi-CBDC network, which is still just an idea. Out of the 3, only XRP's model works in real institutional spaces right now. Take that in. This is not what the IMF thinks about XRP. They are looking at its working design. To get a sense of the size, think about how oil changed business. Before oil, companies used coal, which was slow, dirty, and expensive. As soon as oil came along, the world became organized. These days, money moves through slow, not clear, and expensive correspondent banking. XRP's value will move like energy without any friction and in an instant. And history backs up this change. In the 1400s, bankers in Florence came up with double entry accounting as a way to keep track of trade around the world. This was the first step toward capitalism. With this change, the IMF's C currency system could turn into triple entry accounting for the world of computers. Every transaction is checked at the same time on a neutral record. The IMF writers talked about a market that moves toward fewer currency pairs and a third currency, or C system, that works as a universal middle ground. Sense a pattern? That's XRP's regenerator, an asset that connects all currencies without trust or accounts that have already been paid. The best part is now here. In that job, they don't talk about Bitcoin or Ethereum. Why? Because those networks were never meant to be flowing. They were made for ideology and math. Ripple's XRP is designed to be used for payment, not speculation. It's not the pump, but the pipes. Take a step back for a second. The world's money system starts over every few generations. Bretton Woods makes the US dollar king in 1844. Dixon stops the use of gold in 1871. There is a change in trust from metal to monetary policy. In 1825, we start what economists call the digital Bretton Woods era. And can you guess who is quietly making his plans? Yes, it's the IMF, the same organization that made the first system after World War II. This time, though, trust is backed by digital liquidity instead of real gold. That money has been able to easily move between CBDCs, tokenized bonds, stablecoins, and regular money. But the C currency is here to help. It is a neutral bridge asset that makes sure all digital currencies can talk to each other. Imagine there was a translator at a UN meeting who could translate everything into a language that everyone could understand right away. That's real XRP. The IMF also knows that the world's currencies will fall apart without a bridge. There is a digital dollar zone led by the US, a BRICS token zone, and an EU CBDC block. Splitting up work is not good for speed. Ripple's technology is actually designed to bring them together. The IMF is not predicting the future when they talk about a model that removes trust and relationships between two parties and uses Ripple's XRP ledger. Instead, they are mapping it out. The private sector is moving just as quickly as the IMF is making the plans. Real-world assets like government bonds, money market funds, and even real estate have already been tokenized by BlackRock, the biggest asset manager in the world. What else is needed to settle the value of tokens around the world? A neutral bridge that can connect different systems. BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are building their own cross-border systems that are not part of SBUIFT. They're having trouble with interoperability, even though they can't all agree on the one, the Ripple or the real. They can all agree on a digital middleman that isn't used for political gain. XRP is a bridge that doesn't have a flag. This is where history rhymes again. International trade in the 1800s rested on gold bills and merchant credit, which didn't always work when there was political unrest. Trade became stable only after global clearinghouses accepted neutral standards. The same thing happens again today, but this time the center is digital, decentralized, and runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on distributed ledgers. On-demand liquidity, ODL, for XRP already does this in routes that go from the Philippines to Mexico and from Japan to Dubai. At the moment, a few $billion are being tried, but soon trillions could depend on it. The IMF, the World Bank, and the BIS have all agreed that the next big step in global finance will depend on faster capital flow, not more regulation or more capital. In the background, that's the quiet change going on. One word, trust, stands out in the IMF study. Over many years, money was backed by gold, then countries backed it. It's now backed up by math,